These are our notes for section 6.1, percents and decimals. So first we're going to talk about how to convert a percent to a decimal. In order to do that, first remove the percent sign. Then you divide by 100, or you can just move the decimal 2 places to the left. So let's look at that. Got these numbers down here. With 24, there is no decimal point, so we know that it's at the end. We're going to move it 2 to the left, so that becomes 0.24. Just to make sure that we understand that's not a multiplication dot, we're going to put a 0 in front of it. So this is how we would write 24 hundredths. Go ahead and try the other three and turn it back on. Okay, number 2, we get rid of our percent sign. When we move it over twice, we need to add a 0. So it's 0.03. On the next one, we move it over twice, and it's 1.07. And finally, move it over twice, and we have 0.927. So converting to a decimal from a percent is quite straightforward. Now let's go backwards. We're going to take a decimal, change it to a percent. So we're going to just do the steps backwards. So now instead of dividing, you'll multiply by 100, or just move the decimal place point 2 places to the right. And then you add the percent sign back on. So we're going to actually move backwards from what we just did. So here I have my decimal point right before the 4. I'm going to move it 2 to the right, which becomes 47, and add the percent sign. Go ahead and try the other 3 and turn it back on. Okay, on number 6, you should have moved it 2 to the right. 66.3%. Here when I move it 2 to the right, I've got a number I need to add in, so I add a 0 for it to fill that space, 180%. Finally, when I move the decimal here, I still don't quite get past the 9, so it's 0.9%. And that's how you convert from a decimal to a percent. Now we're going to look at changing fractions, percents, and decimals. So first of all, fraction to a decimal, the key is to divide. From now on, whenever you see a fraction, you need to know that this line right here means to divide. So on each of these, you'll want to use a calculator, and you're going to just divide the number. Always the top, or the numerator, divided by the denominator. So in this case, you do 70 divided by 20, and we're changing this to a decimal, so it'll be 0.0 or 0.35. Try the other two and turn it back on. Okay, 3 divided by 5, you should have 0.6. And 3 divided by 2 is really 1.5. Okay. Now, changing a fraction to a percent, first of all, change it to a decimal, which is what we just did. And then you're going to move your decimal 2 spaces to the right. So notice that these numbers down here are the same as the numbers we just did up above. So I already know that 7 over 20 is 0.35. So to change that to a percent, you're going to move it 2 to the right, so this would be 35%. Try the other 2 and turn it back on. Okay, on 13, we know that it divided to be 0.6, so when you move it over twice, you've got to add a 0 for a space holder, and this becomes 60%. And on 3/2, that was 1.5. Move it 2 to the right, and you have 150%. So that's how you convert from fractions to decimals and so forth. Okay, now let's look at what's going on next here. We want to write percents as fractions. So the first thing you do, percent always means per 100, so you put the number over 100 and then you reduce it. So I have 40%, so I would put that as 40 over 100. At this point, you do get rid of the percent sign, and then you reduce that down. You can use your calculator and type 40, ABC 100 to make it a fraction, and then reduce it down. It does become 2/5. You can also do it with the next one. Go ahead and try it and turn your computer back on when you are done. Okay, so 35 over 100 reduces, you should have reduced that to 7 over 20. And then for 88, you make that over 100, and those reduce down to 22 over 25. So here, let's look at this example right here. If you have a math test and you get 92 out of a possible 100, which is not the way to express 92. out of 100. Well, I know 92% is 92 out of 100, and I know 0.92 is 92 out of 100 because those are different forms of it, 92 out of 100. So then we need to figure out each of these. So you could notice that 25 goes into 100 4 times, multiply by 4, or you could just take 23 divided by 25. Either way, you're going to get 92 out of 100. Whereas this one, if you multiply by 5 to get 100 on the bottom, 17 times 5 is 85. So the one that does not belong is letter C because each of the others are 92 over 100. So on your homework today, you're going to compare your decimals, fractions, and percents. And you can do that by doing the pink worksheet. And there's also some papers in the book. Please notice on this that fractions can go to percents and can go to decimals any way that we look at it. So go ahead and do that, and there is no homework quiz on this section.